A multiplat splice is used to join two ropes of equal diameter. They can be differing types of multiplat. The one we're using for the example is 8-strand multiplat. This is multiplat line, or a type of multiplat. This is an 8-strand multiplat. It has 4 strands of left-hand lay, 2 on this side and 2 on this side. And it has 4 strands of right-hand lay, 2 and 2. Now, just so I can clarify that, when we're looking at the lay, we put the rope on our palm of our hand and our natural pointing of our thumb, either on the right or the left hand. And then we look at the strands as a pair. And we notice that they're going off in the direction of our right-hand thumb. That makes this right-hand lay. We do the same thing to discover the left-hand lay. We rotate it around until we find the strands, the pairs, that are moving in the same direction as our left hand, palm up. And we have left-hand lay. Now, for ease of use, again, we're going to be splicing with black and green. But to show you how we'd do it, we'd normally make an eye of a size that we needed, whether it was going over a mooring bit or a small eye, if it's just going to be attached to something else, a shackle or something. So the first thing we'd do is we would take each individual strand out here. We'd pull a piece of tape off, get the tape around the strand. Don't need a whole lot, just enough to keep it from unraveling while we're splicing. Maybe a wrap or 2. That's sufficient. We'd do that with each one. And then we'll take these as a pair, making sure they are a pair, and we'll put a small strand just to hold them into place so that we can keep them as a pair. It's important with this type of splice, this method, that we keep them in as pairs. Now, once we've got all those ends done, we'll count a number of strands, a number of pairs from the bitter end to the standing part. When this splice is done, it's normally done with 4 tucks and then 2 taper tucks. The taper tucks are such that we reduce the size of these by cutting some of the filaments in it out of each one. But we'll talk more about that when we get to the taper. Initially, all of them will be the size that you see them now. We'll count back 8 sets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, between the 7th and the 8th, we'll put 1 piece of tape. Now, this is just a marker piece of tape. This is one of the first pieces of tape that comes off. It's just marking us a length. We'll be tucking with these strands here. We'll be creating our eye with this space here. Now, from this point in the demonstration, I'm going to change over to the black line to get the contrast and colors as we finish our splice. I've prepared the ends of the black line so that they're all taped up. I'll count back my 8 that I need. We'll consider this as 1, because if you look, the length is about the same here. So this is 1 tuck, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. As I said before, it's good to have contrasting tape. It helps quite a bit sometimes when you're keeping track of your tucking strands. So again, between the 7th and the 8th, we're just going to put a single piece of tape, not a big piece, just needs to hold itself into place. Now, the only thing I haven't done is I haven't put the strands together as pairs yet, which we'll do now. It's not important that they're the same length. It's important that they're together as pairs. So don't mix the pairs up. Find your next pair, wrap them up. You'll see they lay nicely in amongst each other. Very nice. It's the natural lay of the line itself. Just a wrap or 2. Make sure it stays in place. The last pair to wrap up. Now, we unravel them as pairs. What you'll notice as we're unraveling them, that the lay stays in the rope itself. So if for some reason we didn't have something to tie, we could tie it off here, and we had to lay it back up, all I have to do is look and see where these small grooves are inside, and I can put it back into place. And thereby, not waste any rope. So having these together as pairs will help in a few different ways. That's just one of the ways. The next way will become apparent when we start splicing. So, we unlay the line. We've decided how big we're going to make our eye. And I'm going to use right-hand lay to begin with. In other words, I'm going to look on here, find out which of my strands are right-hand lay. When I do that, I'm going to be looking on the inside of the eye. And if you'll notice, it'll follow in a line. And that's the same way that we will splice when we splice. We'll splice in this direction and we'll go in the same line all the way up until we're finished with our tucks. So we'd follow this around, all the way around, until we came around to this side and found the right-hand lay on this side. So the right-hand lay matches the right-hand lay. Now, here's our marker strand. So we come just above our marker strand here. Our marker tape, I should say. Come just above our marker tape. And here are our first two right-hand lays. And they're in the center. So now we know that's there. That's okay. Now it's a matter of opening this up, getting the fid. And this is where we want to be very careful. Because the fid, if you pick it up on the point, you can pick up underneath strands, break them very quickly, and if you break a few in all 8, it weakens the rope. So we're going to carefully push underneath there and use our fingers to make sure that we haven't picked up any excess strands. And another way to avoid it is when we get to the next pair, we come back over here to avoid picking up any center strands or any center yarns or filaments. I push it down there and I use my thumb to get it up over the top. Push it through a little bit more. So I've gone through the center of these first two that I look at. I've gone through the center of the next two. Now, as we look dead through the center, these two are the next ones I come to. So I'll lift the one on the right-hand side and go under it and up between it and the left-hand one. So I've lifted the one on the right-hand side and come up underneath it, between it and the left-hand one. It only leaves me one more pair to split, this pair here. So I ease it out, open the gap up with my finger, feed the fid all the way through. So we're going to push it in a bit more. We work it back and forth. We push it against our knee and push it in, and it goes in further. Just by working it back and forth, it'll make it as it opens up the lay a wee bit so we can ease it into place. We come back over here, we find the other side of our eye and the right-hand lay ropes that we need. So we find those as a pair, so we're tucking down in the right-hand pair here. So right hand always matches right hand. And we take them as a pair and we put them dead through the center. So we'll take those, we'll pull our fid out now, we'll pull them up a little bit tight and we'll take that piece of tape off that we had initially. Just to hold those together. We'll unravel those strands just so that we take the twists out because we don't want any twists in it. Once we get to this point, with multiplat, it's important to remember that right hand will correspond to right hand and left hand will correspond to left hand. And in this case, we're using right-hand strands to begin our splicing with. So we must choose a right-hand strand to tuck with and a left-hand strand to tuck with. Because we're using right-hand lay to begin with, we'll take our fid, we'll pass it underneath the left one, we'll take our left one that we've chosen and pass it underneath the left one. You may ask, why did we push two through to begin with? It's much more difficult if you put one through and then try to find that space over here to push the other one through. Putting those two through to begin with and making that last simple little maneuver is a much easier way to do it. We have the right hand strand of this pair up through the right hand lay. Right corresponds to right. We don't want this too tight yet, so we'll rotate it back onto the other side. And we look back here and we think, okay. Now plaiting is done in a weave, as I showed you before. And it's important to understand that this right-hand lay that's on the outside now, as we go out towards the rope, it'll go up and become the inside on the next one. So that it weaves back and forth from one side of the rope to the other as a plait does. So it's important to define this as the outside set of strands. And by doing that, we ensure that we look down here and we see the left hand is the one coming to the left, one coming to the right, and we have a cross where the left hand lays. And that should be established that we have that cross just here. That ensures that this is now the outside strands for the right hand lay. If we were to uncross that, this now becomes the inside, and we get a twist in our splice. So that must be crossed. To ensure that stays in place and crossed, we ease it back a little bit, and we undo the next set of right-hand lays. So again, now's the time to unlay those two. We're going to go back to where we first started, where we first put our first set of right-hand lays through the middle. We're going back to that first set on our standing part of our rope. We're going to tuck the right hand of this pair underneath the right hand of this pair. So the right hand underneath the right hand. Against the lay, across the lay. Our lay is going to the right. We tuck to the left. We come up for the next one, put our left one underneath our right one. Now we have those two lefts locked and out into place. Now's the time to come down here and get this bit of tape that we used as the original marker and get rid of it. We don't need it anymore. Not taking that tape off can hide about 25 mil of slack. That's a lot of slack to be hiding in one of these pieces of rope. So it's best to get rid of it. So again, we pull a little bit of slack up, but not too much. We're not done tucking yet. We have two lefties, or two left-hand pairs we have to tuck. We'll move all the way to the left, unwind the two strands, so we can tuck them separately. Now we don't want to come out at an angle of 90 degrees, so we'll run it up the rope a bit to the next pair. And we always stay with a pair. Well, I say always. Occasionally we can get out, but most of the time we'll stay with a pair. So as we're looking at pairs, we'll always treat these as pairs, those as pair, those as a pair. But we would never take this one and this one to use as a pair. So, we have to go against the lay. Left-hand lay goes off to our left, which means we have to tuck to our right. We'll take our fid, pass it underneath the left hand, one we want to tuck under. So we've chosen the left hand of this pair, the left-hand one of this pair. We're going to choose the left-hand one of this pair. It's going to come underneath here, going to the right. Left-hand lay gets tucked to the right to go against the lay. Right-hand lay gets tucked to the left. Keeping this strand out of the way because we've already used that one. We come over here and choose the pair. If you're ever in doubt, always go back to the base. It'll tell you whether they're a pair or not. It's very easy to see that these two are not a pair if you look down here at the base. It's easy to see that these two are a pair if you look at the base. However, if I'm up here like this, it's a bit difficult sometimes to tell which of those three is actually a pair. So if you're in doubt, look back to the start. It'll tell you quickly which one or which two are pair. So, we come back here, get that one that is not a pair out of the way, come underneath our other strand, again, left-hand lay tucking to the right. We have our first two lefts tucked. So now we completed two rights, and two lefts. We'll rotate one last time to get our last set of initial tucks in. So our last set of left-hand lays. We'll take off the bit of tape that's made them a pair, unwind them, choose a right and a left. We can see clearly our left-hand pairs. 1, 2, and 1, 2. So we'll choose this pair here. It's closest. It'll give us the shortest length for the tuck. The left one goes underneath the left one of the pair and up between the two. The right one goes underneath the right one of the pair and up between the two and down between the two. And that's our last tuck for our initial set of tucks. Tightening technique is a little bit different with this than it is with 3-strand. The tightening technique with this is to tuck them all and then to start pulling them up into the standing part. Because it's not wound like 3-strand is, you can't actually screw it down into the lay. All you can do is pull it up in and pull it up in tight and evenly. And again, trying to make sure that they're all even and not pull up too much of the lay in one go. Your slat comes up evenly, and when you're finished, you have a nice, even set of tucks. Now initially when you look at it, it doesn't look all that even. But if you look at it carefully, so you've got the lefts are tucked under the lefts, the rights, the initial ones, are tucked up through the center, which will enable us to run these strands up this outside, which gives us a good even pull up around the whole circumference of the rope. We rotate it over here, our other rights are tucked in tight. Rotate it over here one more time, and our other ones are tucked in as well. So we have our initial 8 tucked once. And now that everything's tightened, we can go on from there. Now this is where some people can come under a little bit of confusion. It's important again to look. Where are our pairs? Okay, I can see that those two are a pair right here. So if I follow that, I have 1, and I follow the other one, and I have 2. And then what I should do is get rid of all the other ones, because they don't count right at the moment. Just double check. I've got 1 and I've got 2. Good. And if I see, hang on, that one's crossing, pull that one out of the way. Belongs on the other side. No tucking strands are ever tucked over another tucking strand. So we pull it out of the way on the correct side, and now we look at it and we can see that it's free and clear to go to our next set of strands. We find our pairs, 1, 2, and we realize where we want to go from this pair where we were before to the next pair in line. And we look up here and we can see this is in the way. It's not one of the pairs. We've distinguished those down here, so we pull it out of the way. We'll go under the one and being careful again not to pick up any strands on the inside. Pass it underneath. Being the right-hand lay, it must tuck to the left. Get its partner. Tuck it to the left. Now it's not important to go right to the right-hand lay again. You can go straight to a set of left-hand lays. But again, make sure you get the partners correct. This one may be up there, but it's not one of the partners for these two. These two are the partners. We're going to go over 1 and under 1. We're going to go over 1 and under 1. And we just keep rotating it. Find our pairs, realizing that these are the pair. This one is in the way, so we'll get it out of the way. We're going to go from this pair to the next pair in line. We'll go under the right-hand one. Careful not to pick up those strands. Take the right-hand one under the right-hand one. Up and out of the way. Take the left-hand one, over 1, under 1. Last set of left-hand lay. From this pair to this pair, that one belongs to the other pair. We can see distinctly that these two are the ones we want to use. Under one, over the one in front of it, under the next one. We've got 2 sets of tucks done. We need 4 in total before we go into a taper. We tighten them by pulling up, tighten them by pulling up, tighten by pulling up, tighten by pulling up, and that's the first set of tucks done. Under one, that's 1 set of tucks. Under the next one, 2 sets of tucks. We move on to the next set of tucks. Find the pair, get ones that aren't the pair out of the way, put the right hand one under the right hand one, the left hand one under the left hand one, rotate to the next one. Right, over one and under one, left, over one and under one. Rotate again till we get to the next pair. We go over one and under one, over one, under one, rotate one more time, over one and under one, the last black one over the one, under the next one, and 3 sets of tucks are complete. Pull them up, pull them tight. And the last set of tucks before we start our taper tucks. Over one and under one, over one. Now I've just picked up the wrong one, and I look back here and I can see distinctly that this is the one of the pair I want to use. So always check, double check and make sure. Over one and under one. Over one and under one. Over one, under one. Over one and under one. So then we go over one and under one, tucking to the left because it's right hand lay, over one and under one, one last set of tucks will even things up so that my left hand lay and my right hand lay will both come out even on both sides. Last set of tucks, making sure they're up and tight. And that shows that we've got 1 set, 2 set, 3 set, 4 set of tucks. So 4 tucks, and now we'll go into a taper tuck. So we have 4 tucks with the complete thickness of the strands. And now what we'll do is we'll take the same amount of filaments out of each individual strand one time, and we'll do it a second time, so that the splice itself will go from a uniform width with the initial size, and it'll start getting smaller as we get down to the second taper tuck. Tapers are used in splicing to allow the line, wire rope, or fiber rope to enter and leave blocks without jumping. Standard way is to look in here and count how many of these there are. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. So we're going to do 2 tucks, we'll do 16. We'll take 5 out the first time, we'll take 5 out the second time. That will leave us with 6 individuals for the last tuck. A good rule of thumb for splicing is never cut your ends any shorter than the width of the actual splice. Not the original rope, but the width of the actual splice itself. So if I'm going to cut back in here, I'm going to look for the width of this, and I'm not going to cut those off any shorter than that. If I cut it off too short, when the splice pulls itself up, or draws as it's called, this will shrink back in to a certain point and stop, and it won't go any further. And then it will work that way